Hey guys, this is Vivian Xavier. I'm back with another edition of Gandhara Independent Film Festival 2020 filmmaker discussion. And today we're going to be talking to the producer and director duo of Hamza Bangash and Carol Narohna. Carol is a producer from Pakistan, and Hamza Bangash is a writer director. Most recently, both of them have been getting rave reviews for the work on 1978, which had its festival premiere at Locarno. Hamza himself has a background in theater, but he's been making waves as a film director and a writer for the past few years in Pakistan. Carol has a history of working as a producer in Pakistan for feature films and commercials as well as shorts. And today we're going to be talking to them about independent filmmaking in Pakistan. What are the trials? What are the tribulations? And what's the way forward? Hey guys,
Hey man, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Hi, Vivian. Good to be
Hey,
here.
thank you guys for agreeing to talk to me. So I've given a quick introduction, but you guys go ahead and just talk a little bit about yourselves, and then from there we'll take it forward. So whoever wants to go first.
Okay, cool. I'll go first. So, as Vivian introduced, I'm Carol, and I've been working in the film industry for the last 8 years or so. I've been working as a producer mainly on feature films, short films with Hamza, commercials, music videos. So it's quite an interesting mix of things. I think most people who know the Pakistan industry would know that short films are not one of the major things that are highlighted here, but it's more on the commercials aspect of cinema, and also in the TV ads and things like that. So I think independent cinema right now is growing slowly, but it's good that filmmakers are now getting into the spectrum of things.
And you, Hamza?
Yeah, my name is Hamza, and I'm a Pakistani-Canadian writer and director. I've been working in the Pakistan industry for, I think, about the last 4 years. And prior to that, I was working in theater. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here and to be discussing, my latest short film, 1978, which is at the Locarno Film Festival, and also just cinema in general.
Cool. So, guys, let's start off with 1978. I'm going to ask Hamza this. I know that in an interview with Asian Movie Plus, you mentioned that you spoke to Norman D'Souza, and that's when you knew that that's what you wanted to talk about. But was there anything before that? Because you had already spoken to Carol, and that's how you met Clifford. Uh, and so, but you already know you wanted to make a movie on the Christian community or the musicians, or how did that sort of come about to what the present state is of the
So
film?
when we started, if you read the interview, it actually started with a feature film treatment that my executive producer, Rashid Maqsood Hamidi, had. Rashid Maqsood Hamidi. And his was kind of, he's from that era in the 70s, and he's very nostalgic of that era. But the treatment that he had developed was set in present day. And when we were talking, I was like, why are we doing it in present day? The 70s is so much more interesting because that's when, a lot of these changes happen. So I convinced them to kind of focus in on that period of change, that transitional period where Pakistan's identity, changed drastically over a period of 2 years, and then started doing research. And so thanks to Carol, we reached out to a lot of people from the Christian Goan industry. But initially, I didn't know if we were going to be doing it on that community. We were also looking at cabaret dancers, at nightclub owners. I was kind of just chasing up the people who were the most affected by the changes that were happening at that time and economically affected. And then one of the people that we met through Carol's connections was Norman Souza. And after speaking with him, I was like, this is a story. This is a very interesting story of what he's been through. And of course, I heavily fictionalized his story, and I also took elements of other people's stories and brought them in there. because at the end of the day, it's cinema. So I can take those liberties.
Yeah.
But it was a process of kind of trial and error. To be honest, the original film was about a cabaret dancer, but we ended up moving away from that.
And is there any reason why? Just purely because this seemed like a better story, or?
Yeah, I'm like, for me, it's kind of like story hunting, and I'm like, this would work. This would work. It's what gets people excited. With my films, what I tend to do is I take a real life incident, and this has been for my last 3 films. I'll take a real life incident and then I'll dramatize that, because I think in Pakistan, fact tends to be stranger than any fiction. So, you know, there's so many opportunities there. And while I don't work in documentary, I work in fiction. I think fiction can kind of, there's more possibilities for me.
And Carol, when did you come on board? On board 1978, and what's your experience been like? What shifting from features to working with shorts, especially with Hamza. How can you talk a little bit about your relationship with working with directors?
Yeah, of course. So, are you talking now specifically these short films, or are we going dated back?
You can start off with the shorts, and then you can say how they're different from, say, working with someone like Jami, because I know that you worked with him as well.
Yeah, of course. So I think Hamza and I have had a good working relationship since the last 3 to 4 years. We've done 3 shorts together, and that has kind of built a really good sync. So I think even with 1978, I knew way before that that film was going to be coming in. And I think a couple of months after he had a first draft in, he shared it with me, and then we kind of took it from there. So I think from research stage, actually, because even the first draft, he wanted to get a tighter story, a better story. So research is really important. And I think for all the shots that we've done, they've all been inspired by real life, like you just said. So 1978 was one of those projects that both of us knew was going to be a lot more challenging than the other ones that we did, not just in terms of budget, but also in terms of putting together such a massive project in the budget that we had. Although the budget of this was bigger than the ones that we were actually used to working, but so was the scale. You see, because when it comes to period pieces, you really cannot mess around. You need to know that every detail that you've used is authentic to the time period. So
Yeah.
I think with Hamza, we've always had that kind of synergy and that kind of sync where we don't really need to say a lot, and you kind of understand now how the process works. So if I want to compare this now to feature films, so, well, I think the amount of energy is the exact same. It's just the duration. The duration of time is a lot longer in a feature. A lot more people involved. There's a lot more money involved as well. There's a big commercial aspect to it. So there is a heaven and earth difference in doing the two. I just think that short films right now have the capacity for us to be more experimental. They have the capacity for our voices to be heard on an international scale, and also I think they allow filmmakers to be, again, I think for lack of better words, experimental with their voices and with their thoughts. Do they want to, what type of filmmaking methods do they want to use, what kind, so I think all of these things are really important to build to a feature film.
True. And because you were talking about the budget, can you give me like not specific, but how much of a difference was it from, say, Rangras or Dia? What was the scale of the budget in terms of how much more was it?
So it was a little bit more than double what we're used to. And then having to pull off a period film within that, like, we got really lucky with our partners. One of the ways that I don't think we would have been able to make this film were if Beach Luxury hadn't come on board. Like, they actually came on board as a sponsor, and then we shot like probably 50% of our film there,
Okay.
And without that, I don't know how we would have been able to pull it off. But we're really lucky to have both Rashid Maksud Hamidi and Abid Aziz Merchant as the executive producers on the film, and to believe in it, because it's, it is at the end of the day them putting in a lot of their own private capital, and knowing that with short films it's really difficult to recoup. But at the same time, there is a long-term strategy of hopefully developing this into a feature film, which is why it's so exciting, the feedback that we're getting right now in the short,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because it shows that there is a story there, that this team that we've built can do this. And it's never been done before. So, I mean, I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to do it as a short, because it allowed me to kind of iron out a lot of things that I'd rather iron out at this stage. You know, because this was a film that is a scale that we haven't attempted before. There's costumes, there's locations, there's building discos and like building TV sets and all this crazy stuff that we've never had to do. So it was exciting. And as Carol said, you know, like it allows me to experiment because there's less of an expectation for this film to financially recoup. So there's more freedom. You know, I wouldn't be able to say a lot of the things if we had to go through the powers that be are in Pakistan, you know, if they had to approve the film. So there's a lot more freedom in some ways with the shorts format.
And when you're talking about recruitment, are you talking about a monetary recruitment, you know, for the shorts right now? Are there any platforms that you guys are looking at where you can get the money back, or are you thinking in terms of a long-term strategy once you actually make a feature?
Long-term strategy when we actually make the feature. When I was talking about recoupment, I meant if we had made this as a feature, I would face different pressures of box office and also of what works in Pakistan, you know, and the comparables in Pakistan, which are like a Humayun Saeed film. So this is not that. So, you know, because again, the film industry is a business, but there's more freedom in the shorts platform. I don't know how to dial down the fact that, you know, short films do not recoup their budgets. It just doesn't happen unless you're shooting on $100. Maybe you will. But if you're shooting something up the scale of 1978, you can't even expect to, you know, which is why you do have to think long term.
Yeah. And I think in this aspect also, I think most people who want to get into independent cinema kind of need to know that, you know, you have to form a team that knows how to work with you, because you're not going to be able to take a whole platoon of people on set. You know, you really need to be calculated. I think that's something that we've actually had good practice doing over the last few years, is that, you know, we've known how to form a team, how to take out the best work in the most effective manner. So, you know, independent cinema has, yes, it does have limitations, but then I think there's a lot more that you get to learn from it. And I don't think most people realize that, actually.
Also, we're not making films the traditional way. Like both of our, with the exception of Stray Dogs, like 1978 was shot over 8 months and we had like a 6-month break. So we shot like 3 days and then 6 months later we shot the last 3 days. And for me, there was so much learning in that in-between period. So yeah, I mean, and that's also how we made Dia. You know, Dia was also shot over like 9 months, and we shot 2 days, then 6 months later we shot 4 days. So the way that we're making films is also not the norm, but it's allowed us to really take our time in developing these projects, and I think that's why we get the kind of feedback that we do.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is really interesting for me. So why the space in between? Is it budgetary, or is it, you know, some other reason? Why the long sort of space in between shooting?
So sometimes it's not actually just budget, right? Because when you're working with, I mean, it also is, but when you're working with shorts, everyone's kind of coming together, giving in their time. It's more time and more passion. So you have to work with everyone's schedules, right? And obviously at the side, everyone's working. We're all doing our thing. So, you know, and especially for a film like 1978, we had a big cast. Locations mattered. People were coming on board to support us in a really big way. So we also had to be as accommodating as they were being to us. So I think it's just a matter of that. And, you know, sometimes in shorts, you have the liberty to take time, shoot something, see whether you like it. You have the option to maybe reshoot later. You have the option to decide whether you'd like to do something in a much better way in the next spell. So there are lots of things that come in the way. We were lucky that we had that time in the middle to see how we would want to take the second half of the shoot as well. because the first spell was really heavy. It actually was. So I think after that first spell, we were wiped out. It was the first time we were attempting to do something of that bigger scale in such a short span of time and budget.
To give you an idea, we had one day where we recorded the nightclub scene. And in that same space, then we had to reset the space, make it into the PTV studio, and then record that scene. And that was one day.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
like, and we had like dozens of extras. It was crazy, if I were to do it again, that would be done in 2 days. But we didn't have that option because Beach Luxury had only given us the space for a limited amount of time, and they were giving it for free. So we couldn't be like, we need more time, So that was crazy. And like, we were exhausted by the end of that. So, I mean, like I'm actually really grateful that we had the space in between to kind of rethink and regroup and then come back and shoot the rest. Also because once we did wrap the film, like the race was on to complete it for the fall festival deadlines. So like we suddenly had no time from having all this wonderful time in production to like no time in post-production. But that was only possible because we took all this time in production. Because I've had it the other way as well, where with my previous short film, Stray Dogs, we shot that over a 48-hour period. And that was a different kind of experience. But then because of how that shoot went, it took me like 11 months in post-production to make the film what it was now. So it took way longer in post because we had way less time in production.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I want to come back to Abid Merchant. I sort of feel like he's been at the forefront of spearheading a lot of good independent work. I know that he's worked with Iram Parveen as well on her feature. That went on 2 features. Oh wow!
Yep.
So he's the executive producer on "I'll Meet You There," which was selected at South by Southwest, and then they have a feature that's in development called Bakri, which was shortlisted for the development program at Cannes, where they kind of help tie you up with producers. And it was the first time any Pakistani film has been through that program. So it's exciting what he's doing.
And he's worked with you on Dia as well, right?
No, that was Mina Hossain. She was the executive producer. She's been the producer on both Dia and Stray Dogs Come Out at Night.
Okay. But so how did you guys meet with Abid, and how has that relationship been? For you, Hamza, as a director, and for you, Carol, how is it working with Abid? Because obviously he's one of the other producers as well. So how does that relationship work? How do you guys coexist in this family, a creative family?
Yeah. So I mean, I met Abid through Hamza. So I met him through 1978, and I think one of the things that people don't also know is the kinds of producers, right? So there's an executive, there's a creative, so there's an associate, there are different types. So Abid was executive on 1978, but what I really liked as a creative producer was that I just thought that we had great synergy. He's very particular. He is extremely particular. He will not let things slide. It's not just, what, I funded a project, now go. Even though there's no return on shorts, like Hamza said, it's not one of those scenarios. But he was very particular. He would not let anything slide. And that's really important, because he also knows what kind of went on in 1978. He was there. So anytime that we needed that help, anytime we needed anything in terms of creative, in terms of styling, and sometimes in terms of wardrobe, in terms of props, he was there at the forefront. And that's something very rare, by the way. That's very rare to have someone so invested and so involved. I truly appreciate that. For me as a producer, to have the backing of my executive is the most important thing. One thing I do love about working with Abid, that I will say even for future projects, is the fact that he trusts, so when he does trust someone, then he really gives it to that person. So, for example, with me, we have a really good working relationship. So, if he knows that I'm good at doing something, he'll hand it over to me, and there's, and I think it's a very smooth working process. And that's something I really appreciate. I do.
So I first met him at Open Doors in 2018, and it was really funny because we were going for a walk up through there was this meeting space at Locarno called the Mobilier, and I was like, oh, would you ever be interested in making a short film? And he's like, no, I would not. And I'm like, great, okay, well, I asked. And then we came back to Pakistan and we went on living our lives. And then I got a call from him a few months later saying that, there's this project he wants to talk to me about. So what Abid Saab is really good about is like, if he thinks someone is good for a position, like you'll never know how he's really feeling, but like he'll grab them and be like, okay, we're doing this, He's definitely a person where he's hard to read. So you're kind of on your toes. And then we went in for a meeting and I met with Rashid Maksud Hamidi, who's the other executive producer, along with Abid Saab on this film. And we had a gupshup and, they said that they wanted to make this feature film. But I realized at that point, because Abid Saab had never made a feature film in Pakistan, he just got off making I'll Meet You There with Aram in New York. And Rashid Maksud Hamidi was also a first-time executive producer. So I recognized immediately that, it would be beneficial for us as a team to make a short film together, because a feature, while this was a 2-year commitment, a feature is like a 6-year commitment, So like you want to know the people and you want to have that work experience of making art together before you commit to like 6 years of your life, So that's how I kind of ended up pitching them a short film and we started our working relationship. And I have to say, to his credit, like he'd never made a cinema in Pakistan before, and he came from a very different experience in New York where there's a lot more rules and there's a lot more like 12-hour days. So I think he was kind of shocked when we were working and there was like an 18-hour, 20-hour day, and he's like, what's going on here? But he came on board. And he always went the extra mile. Both me and Carol were used to our executive producers being more hands-off. He was very hands-on, and he's very interested in the process. He's so passionate about cinema. He loves films, and that's something where me and him really connect, because we're always talking about movies. He's the only person I know who can watch like 10 movies a day, and I can't do that. I can maximum watch 2. I can like maximum watch 2 films a day, and he consumes cinema at a speed that is amazing. So this process has been really fantastic with him, and they showed a lot of trust to me, and I really appreciate that, both him and Rashid Saab. So I mean, it's been excellent, and I hope we continue to making cinemas. And he has the potential to independently as a producer, because we don't really have a culture of financiers of independent cinema in Pakistan. He has the potential to be like that person for Pakistani cinema, because he now has made all these connections through the different markets that he's been to. So I'm really excited to see the other work that he does. And I know some other directors he's working with. It's exciting, and I think he might be, he already is a game changer. And I hope that even though COVID has been horrific for all of us, especially for him, because he also works in the art market, he perseveres. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I feel like he's there was a producer in France. I think his production company was called Argos Films or whatever, but he was the main guy behind all the new wave of French directors. He was this old guy who just loved movies, and Abid seems like that guy who's just spearheading and pushing new talent forward. And I wish him nothing but good luck.
Yeah, no, he really does. I think one thing that's really good about Abid that we don't find here a lot is that if he sees someone worth investing in, if he sees a story worth believing in, he makes sure that, if he knows that he wants to do this project, he will make it happen. And he's fair. So I think that's important I think it's something to note that,
and
it's
I think
important.
also because he has a finance background. And this is actually one thing, like, because both him and Rashid Saab have finance backgrounds, they're both long-term thinkers. So they recognize the potential of, like, a lot of Pakistani producers are like, recoup now, paise chahiye, and it's like very short-term thinking. So, their approach, both Rashid Saab and Abid Saab's, is fantastic, because, they're building something and they recognize that the recoup might be huge in the long run, but it might suffer in the short term.
Yeah.
You both have spoken about how the scale of this movie, especially also because it's a period piece. What's been the biggest learning curve for you both? Because you guys have been in the industry for a little bit, but and you guys have done all sorts of stuff. So what's been the biggest learning curve from from the last short film you did to even the commercials and the branded stuff and all of that?
Carol?
You want to take this? Okay. I think the biggest learning curve would be, it's a very complicated question, but I think over a span of 8 years, one thing you learn is how to effectively create a team that knows how to execute an idea in the best way possible, because um, putting a team together that you trust and finding that synergy is very difficult. I think most people underestimate maybe the job role or the importance of a producer, so the producer being the person who actually brings a team together and who knows the right people for the right job. So it's not just, hey, I know a DP and an art director, let's put them together, but knowing everyone's set of skills and how they can bring an idea to life. So I think for me that was the biggest learning curve, because for 8 years I've worked, I think, in every possible department and in every possible medium, from there's music videos that have no budget to commercials which have the most amount of budget, and the same budget that perhaps one would make a 1 minute commercial goes into making a film, a feature film. And maybe, I don't know, quarter or like 1/4 of that goes into making a short. So, you kind of learn who's interested in what, who's the best person for the job, how do you put together a good team to execute something creatively. And I think that's been the biggest learning curve, how to respect people's time, how to respect what they do, because when you yourself go through every possible department, you learn the importance of that little role and that little job that kind of really makes your film come together. So yeah, that would be, I think, something that I have learned over the last 8 years.
I had the opportunity to go to the Asian Film Academy as a producer, and that's where I really, really recognize how hard Carol's job is. But
yeah,
for
we
me,
had a conversation about this.
Yeah, but for me in 1978, the learning curve was kind of on the elements that I hadn't used in my previous short films. One of which was like hair and makeup. Man, I hate those two things. And in my previous films, it's just been like natural hair and natural makeup and no makeup usually and no hair. And on this film, because it's the 70s, those elements were so important. So I spent so much time in like a hair salon, like more time than I've ever spent in my life trying to figure those things out. It was the worst, but I learned so much. So that was a big thing for me on this film. And the other thing was music, because again, in my previous films, I don't really have music. Music is like, it's usually natural or just the sounds of the world. And in this film, because it was about a rock star, music was a huge element. We had to re-record songs, things I know nothing about. So I really leaned on Carol there. I remember there was a day when we were in the studio and I just wanted to go the fuck home. And I'm like, why am I here? And Carol's like, just eat some food, like calm down. And I'm like, I guess this is also part of my job now, So it's like, these were elements that I hadn't really used in my previous films and were so integral to this film. So it was a big learning curve. But that's where I'm so happy I had talented people like Carol for the music to help me, and like Samya Ansari, who was our stylist and also head of hair and makeup, to guide me. And that's where it's so important to have these amazing heads of departments to really, make your film shine. Because the film is so many different people. And another thing I learned through 1978 is like, if you don't like someone, and if you guys don't gel, that's only going to get worse in a high pressure situation. So, the importance of just that kind of like getting on with people, because, when you're shooting, the stakes are high. And if you don't get on, the situation will just like deteriorate fast.
Yeah.
And I know that I don't have him on the call, but again, for the sake of brevity and having too many people, what's your relationship been with Yasser? Because I know that you guys have worked for a while, and I know that on in your video on the Locarno website, you said that figuring out the equipment and getting those lights and that sort of technical stuff was also quite a challenging aspect. So, would you like to talk a little bit about that and how you sort of resolved that?
So, I mean, I've been working with Yasser exclusively for about the last 3 years. Essentially, every project I've been is with him. And I think on 1978, like, because of the fact that the film was about rock and roll and because it's about music, it kind of really drove Yasser to do his best work yet, because it was something that really resonated with him as a person, because he's also a musician. He's also really passionate about music and guitars. So this was a film that spoke to who he is as an artist. And I think that shows in this work, because I do think this is the best work and the best collaboration we've had so far. And yeah.
And sorry, Carol, I'm just going to track back a little bit because you spoke about the different roles that producers have. I do feel that pretty much no one in Pakistan, or very few, even the ones who are making feature films or whatever, they wouldn't know the exact difference. Can you just spell that out for people? Like what's the role of the executive? Because you were obviously working as a creative producer. So what does your role entail, and how do you go about doing it?
Sure. So an executive producer, at least for me, it's not someone who just doles out the money, right? Because I think that's what most people have in their mind, that the executive is the one who just gives you the money, you go do what you want. So I think a good executive is one who knows the business, especially the film business, right? So, like for example, with Abid, the best thing was is that he knows cinema so well. He's gone to the markets, film markets globally. He watches films. He knows how these things work, right? So when he's funding something, he sees the potential. He can foresee, and he knows that it will work because he's done his homework. He has a business mind, right? So that's an executive producer, someone who invests time, energy, and money in a project and in somebody to build them, and who can foresee that, you know what, this project and this person will create waves in the long run. In the short run, yes, of course, but also in the long run, right? Because you have to motivate somebody. It's very important. A creative producer, so my job essentially is to know that, okay, you know what, my executive producer has this much budget. This is my script. I would essentially first break down the script, look at the budget, see whether we can make everything work. So that's something that comes with a lot of experience as well, right? Just knowing off the top of your head that, you know what, this set is going to cost you approximately this much to make, and this is how much this is going to cost you to put together. So you need to have a good know-how of how every department actually functions so that you can estimate accordingly, because that's the trick. And especially in short films, I don't think you have that margin to mess around. You have a very limited budget, and your costing has to be so accurate that your departments do not suffer. So as a creative producer, you break down your script, you cost it out, you make sure that it falls within the budget. If it doesn't, you put forward your case, you request for more, or you scale down your own project a little bit. Not compromise, but you work around it in a way that you make it doable. And then you hire the right people for the job. Once you hire the right people for the job, then it's like a really well functioning machine. So that you need to know how to motivate that as a producer, right? You need to know what, for example, you cannot just give someone a 20-hour day regardless of who says what. You need to know that if you're going to pull a 20-hour day, or you're going to request that, how do you make it so that the entire team remains happy and motivated for those 20 hours? And we went through that. Like, we went through that one long day where we shot, I think, two of the most intense scenes that we had. And we had to make sure, part of my job is make sure that everyone is happy, everyone is good, there's no problem. So I think that's the job of a creative producer. And then also making sure that everything ties together. Everything is done on budget, on time, making sure that the end product is actually what your client or what the initial idea was, sticking to it, making sure that the final product is good. So, that's the job of the producer. It's a bit of creative and business both. It's a mix.
And for you, Hamza, in terms of the, about the writing, what was the writing process for you like for this film, or just generally? And also, why did you guys choose to shoot those particular scenes at that time and then come back, a few months later and then shoot the rest of the stuff?
So for me, the writing process is like, I usually write a first script that I think is really fantastic, and then it turns out to be garbage and we have to throw it away. And then I restart kind of from scratch, taking my preconceived ideas and like throwing them out the window and then, starting again. I don't know, I like workshopping the script consistently with actors. So I like having rehearsal so then I can see what lines work and what lines don't work. Now, as I keep growing as a filmmaker, it's kind of more of like a show, not tell. So I'm using fewer and fewer dialogues and more visuals because cinema is such a visual medium. And you can see that shift between 1978 and my last short film. My last short film, Stray Dogs Come Out at Night, was much more dialogue driven. And this film is much more visual. And I think that's just a part of me growing as a filmmaker because I did come from theater and theater is all dialogue. So, it's
Is that also where the rehearsal bit comes in?
The rehearsal bit's really important. Yes, completely. Because in theater, we have 6 months of rehearsals. So I always like to have like 1 or 2 months of rehearsals if I can swing it. Because then it allows the actors to be comfortable. Then they'll definitely know their lines when you get on set. You've already decided the beats of the scene. So when you get on set, like I don't really like to direct my actors on set because there's so many other things happening. They should know by the time we're there. I've tried to give them all the tools that they need in order to get a good performance. And ideally, by the time we're on set, like on set's my favorite place to be because we're done all the pre-production and we can just shoot. We've done all our thinking. So when you're on set, it's so much more just based on instinct. And then what was your next question after the writing process?
And this is for the both of you. Why did you choose to shoot those particular scenes in the beginning? Whichever one you shot first, and then take come back to the other ones after the break. Why not the other way around? Was it scheduling conflicts or just
travel commitments in between that period? And we had been given beach luxury for a short window that we knew would not repeat again for at least a full year. So it was like all of the scenes that we were shooting at Beach Luxury, which were, by the way, all of our ending scenes. So we basically shot this film completely in reverse. We literally started like with the end of the film and then worked our way to the beginning. But so a lot of it was because of when we were giving access to that location. And once we had that location, we didn't have a lot of time for pre-production. So it was like, we're just going to do the work that we absolutely have to do at this location and then take our time with the other scenes when we have the time. Because I think we had 3 months of pre-pro or 2 months of pre-pro. So we didn't even have a lot of time and we had to pull off a whole shit ton of stuff. So we're like, we're just going to focus on absolutely what we have to do at the Beach Luxury bit.
Yeah.
That was the logic in my head. And also because for me, I like to take a break. So.
Yes, he does. Yeah. But I think that's one of the good things that I think why we also work really well, because all of these rehearsals and all of this pre-production, as a producer, it really, really helps because for me, it's the difference between an 18-hour and a 12-hour shoot, actually. All these rehearsals, when it kind of pays off on set, right? So we're not going through like 10 million takes to get something done. Why? Because it's been rehearsed. Everyone knows what they're supposed to do. We actually go through a like heavy pre-production. We really do.
And I'm going to switch gears and move to the industry as a whole. We've had discussions about what's wrong, what's missing, and all of that. But Carol, I know that you've gone to Berlin for some producing stuff. And Hamza, you've traveled quite a bit. You've gone to Locarno, the Open Doors thing was something that that's I know that's happened a few years ago, but then the festivals, Asian Film Academy. So you guys have seen quite a bit in terms of how things work globally.
Hmm.
If there was one thing that you guys wanted to transplant and bring to the Pakistani industry to make things better, what do you think it should be in an ideal situation?
Hmm.
I
A
mean, in an
lot.
ideal situation, Canada has this
Oh, I mean,
wonderful program.
if you want to keep it real, then you can keep
No,
it
I don't
real.
want to keep it real. Reality is depressing. In an ideal situation, we would have a similar system to what Canada has, where they have this program called Talent to Watch, where they give micro budget grants for emerging filmmakers between the range of 100 and 150,000 Canadian, and they're like, go make your first film, and then that kind of, for a lot of filmmakers, making your first feature film is a huge challenge because no one's going to trust you with money. So they'll allocate that money, and then they'll empower, and they'll have like 20 feature films come out that year from first-time filmmakers. And then for the ones that are good, they continue making features, or they expand into television, whatever. But then you're building the cinema of the culture. You're building a next generation of filmmakers. So, and honestly, Bangladesh has a program like that where they have, I think, 50,000 euros that they give to first-time filmmakers to make their features. So,
Singapore
I mean,
has that as well.
a place
Hmm.
that was once Pakistan has that program,
Yeah.
So that would be, for me, the best case scenario, but realistically, we're in a very different timeline.
For me, it would be structure. I think one thing that I would like to bring here is structure. When I say structure, I mean there's no method to working. It's a little method to madness. That works. And I think that's something that people really need to focus on here. Is A, I would like to bring in structure, and B, a portal to access. Like Hamza said, most countries have a portal to access where filmmakers meet funders, or you meet on there needs to be some hub, some connection. We don't have that. So very few people actually know if there's a funding program going on or if there's anything going on. Very few have access to it. And no one knows how to reach the next person. It sounds very simple that, oh yes, there's Facebook and there's Instagram, but that's not the case when you actually want to get down to business. So I think we need more hubs. I think we need more portals. We need to give access to filmmakers to meet each other. We need to get in more structure over here so that people kind of understand hierarchy and how things function, just for the ease of working. So that's something that
Realistically,
actually lacks.
I feel like Pakistan's a lot like America, and like the future success of our industry depends on the private industry, because it's private individuals are really the one who are bolstering and have been creating the exciting
Yeah.
content for like the last 40 years. We can talk about the golden age of, that certain broadcaster in our country, but that was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So ever since then, everything has been private industry. And I think if our industry is to grow in a positive way, it'll come from the private industry as well.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys both have your ears to the ground in Pakistan. Do you think there's anything exciting coming from filmmakers other than yourself, in Pakistan?
No. We're the only ones.
Yeah, man. Like no one. No, but I mean, just check out Asim's work, right? Chirel's just came out, and that's a
Hmm.
fantastic piece of art that's come out from Pakistan after a
I
really
need
long
to get
time.
on that. I
Yeah,
need to
so
get on that.
Brilliant.
I think slowly but surely, but then also if I mean, for example, we have a platform like Z who provides the funding to filmmakers here to create something like a web series that on its own does not exist in Pakistan. So I guess that's something. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that that's something that's missing here. But other than that, I think people are coming out with work. Simon's work just got, I think he won
Hmm.
at Venice. Yeah, I think he won at Venice. So there is stuff
Yeah.
coming out. I think it just needs to now. I think we just need to motivate our people to kind of produce more work.
I mean, if you look at the last few years, the things that are happening in the independent industry, it's actually it's a really exciting time for Pakistani independent cinema. Despite everything that's happening, the work that's coming out is changing the image. It's traveling to festivals for the first time. It's winning awards for the first time. These are things that have never happened in the history of the country and in the history of the country cinema. I would say a lot of this is like the digital revolution and cinema becoming more accessible to a lot of people. Before there was a lot of gatekeepers and now there's fewer. So people like myself and Carol who have no connections to the industry and do not have a family background in cinema, we can still make work. I think there's a wave coming. We're riding it right now, and it's really going to crescendo, ideally, in the next few years. But a lot of that depends on the global political climate as well as the local political climate. So we will have to see what we're allowed to say. And hopefully, we will be allowed to speak through cinema consistently as we have been. So fingers crossed for that. There's a host of exciting filmmakers who have exciting projects that I know I cannot wait to see the light of day. Sarmit Khurshid is working on a new film. It looks very amazing. At the same time, we need to get his earlier film out. So
it's an amazing film. I mean,
you saw it.
I've seen it.
I missed it.
It's an amazing film.
So the work that Sarmit is doing.
So hopefully we get to see light of day of it over here.
Yes.
And
I'm hoping that Pakistani see it.
Yeah, because people are actually, I think this year, a lot of people have been writing, a lot of projects are in the pipeline. They're good projects. So hopefully, hopefully they get made and hopefully we get to show that to our audience over here.
There's exciting projects coming from Sarmit. There's from Saim. We have a project that's in development. I know Kamal is on pre-production. I know Anam Abbas is working on a feature documentary. So in the next few years, hopefully all these films will be made and released. And then we're really going to see the fruits of the things that are happening right now with these wins on the short film circuit. Because the short film circuit is very much a launch pad to bigger things. And also with Asim's Churels, I mean, the response it's already getting lets me know that, Z will commission future works out of Pakistani artists. So again, a lot of the ways that Pakistani artists are creating work is like in spite of everything in this wonderful place we call home, because we have great stories and hopefully they'll continue being told.
Well, that's I'm glad you guys are being positive about it, and that it's good that we can end on a positive note. I know that you guys need to get on a call. You guys are busy, hopefully with the next project, and I can't wait for when that is done. Thank you for coming and talking to us, taking some time out. And I wish you both the best of luck for everything that's coming your way, because I know it's going to be the absolute best.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So, guys, that was Hamza Bangash and Ann Noronha, and they were talking to us about independent filmmaking in Pakistan. There is some great stuff that's coming out of Pakistan, and you guys just have to watch out. For the ones who want to make films, for the Pakistani filmmakers, go ahead, tell your stories, because they need to be told, and just keep at it, because it's a great time to be a Pakistani filmmaker, and despite of what was happening, we still have great stories to tell. So take care, and hopefully I'll see you again soon with another edition of Kandahar Independent Film Festival 2020.